Let's consider some important developments in North American art during the years in between World War I and World War II. The first artist we'll look at today is Frida Kahlo, a Mexican artist who was known in the United States and had connections here, but the Mexican aspects of her identity are very important in her work. Her best known paintings are self portraits, and she painted self portraits all throughout her life. So this is from 1939. She's a young adult, well into her marriage to Diego Rivera at the time that she makes this painting. And the painting reflects difficulty of this marriage. So what we see here, we see two sides of Frida Kahlo. She's dressed one version of herself in this sort of very traditional proper young lady kind of Mexican attire with a lace collar that goes all the way up to her chin. And on that side, the heart that is exposed to us sends a vein down around her right hand, and she's sort of squeezing the vein shut, although the blood is dripping out from it and sort of merging with the red embroidery of her dress. And the vein extends over to the Frida that is on our right, who likewise has her heart exposed, and the vein wraps around her left hand, in that hand she's holding a portrait of herself and her husband. So she's showing us two sides of herself, a sort of divided self that is calm and at peace. Here's a close up, and you can see the miniature portrait in her hand. Frida Kahlo had a very tumultuous marriage to Diego Rivera. He was a better known artist than she was in her lifetime. This is a self portrait that Frida Kahlo made for her doctor, Dr. Eloiser. She had medical problems and medical needs all throughout her life. Starting as a young child, she had polio as a young child, and that left her with one leg shorter than the other. And then, when she was an art student, she was in a bus accident that sent a railing through her torso, and she almost died. It was months of recovery for her, and during that time, she learned how to paint herself. She started painting self portraits while she was immobilized in bed, recovering from this terrible injury. Her mother set up a mirror over her bed, and she started painting herself that way. So she painted self portraits from then on. And in this one, you can see there's this sort of a ribbony swash at the bottom with the hand holding it. That's from the Mexican tradition of the retablo. You'll often see this at shrines and in churches in the southwest of the United States, and as well as in South America. It's a tradition of making a painting that's something like a prayer. It's like people will make retablos as gifts of thanks when a prayer has been answered. So this sort of reflects that tradition. You can see that she has an earring that looks like a hand. It's a very surrealist looking gesture, right? But it's said that she actually had an earring that looked like this. It was a gift from Pablo Picasso. Um, she was um, she was invited by some of the most prominent surrealists who were active in Paris at the time to come and visit them, and she did. She didn't really feel like she was a surrealist. She felt like surrealism was sort of a club that she didn't really want to be a part of. And so she was definitely a modern, well educated, and very sophisticated artist. She knew what was going on in the art world, but she wasn't really interested in being associated with surrealism. She had her own motives and her own interests. Many of her paintings um, incorporate these sort of creative little elements. They're just not like anything else. This painting is called "What the Water Gave Me." It's a self-portrait in the bathtub. Basically, she's showing us what she sees in the bathtub, or her toes sticking up out of the water, and then all of these little tiny figures that she sort of envisions in the water, reflecting all of these things, very difficult things that she's going through in her life at that time, including an affair that her husband has with a friend of hers, and her husband Diego Rivera, very prominent muralist, had been involved in a tremendous scandal with a mural that he painted in New York City in Rockefeller Center that ended up having to be painted over. So there's all kinds of things going on in this bathtub. Here's a photograph of Frida Kahlo when she was working on the two Fridas. This photograph appeared in a news article about her that presented her in kind of a light as kind of a lightweight, not really a painter to be taken seriously, more famous because of her famous husband. But in addition to her painting, Frida Kahlo is truly a style icon. These photographs are of some of the clothing that she designed and made for herself. She wore long skirts all throughout her life because of her disability from her childhood. So all the design, the embroidery, the colors, all of that's her design.